before we go any further. Okay. Okay, so we'll get our ducks in a row and we'll let everybody else trickle in. Okay. Okay, perfect. So we're live on Facebook. Welcome, everyone. Welcome, Danny. Welcome, Mona. Welcome, Kayla. Welcome, Melanie. Welcome, our guest speaker, Jesse. Um, we'll give it a couple minutes to let everyone trickle in. I know we had more people that were going to jump on the call. And so we'll just allow a couple minutes, but we'll honor everybody that's here on time and get the call underway. We'll get started with an introduction, and then I have like a short little tuning in breathing meditation. It's really short. It's just to help us arrive here, help us set the tone for the call today, which is a call about self-love. So a little bit about Jesse. I've known her for, I don't know, maybe 4 years. She's a psychotherapist, a success life coach. She's also a TED Talk speaker as well. So she comes in with a wealth of knowledge, and she's been here once before. And so I have benefited personally from meeting with her on a one-on-one basis a ton. She's helped me raise my awareness, really helped me look at myself and the situations that life has presented, and helped me really. The first when I first joined her, it was about being congruent. A lot of times we're discombobulated. We want to, our mind says this, our heart says this, and our body says something else, and so we're like malfunctioning, all over the place. So she kind of helped me, boom, get a little bit more aligned, and it's still a project. I think nothing ever is like complete, right? Like life is always unfolding, so we're always like reflecting. So and then the new thought came through that she wanted to talk about self-love, and she has a self-love course, and so then I signed up for that. So I'm super excited to get that going. That should be starting up pretty soon, and so that's what she's going to be talking about. I know there's a lot of talk nowadays about self-love. The topic of discussion that Jesse Rafeh will be dealing with today is self-love isn't just a buzzword, it's a game changer. And I can only tell you from personal experience that for me, it was totally a game changer. People at first, when I was becoming aware and reflecting, they say, "Hey, you don't have self-love. You don't love yourself." I was like, "Yes, I do." But then it took me a few years of searching and really examining and seeing, wow, I don't love myself. What do I subject myself to? Really? I don't love myself. And so I feel this even too is something that is ever unfolding, right? As we become more aware, like how do I treat myself? What am I experiencing? What is the self-talk? There's so many things to look at. And Jesse's the expert and will guide us through that. So a little bit about Jessie. She's again a psychotherapist, a certified success coach, and a TED Talk speaker who released a talk on how to deal with anxiety and start living a happy life. She also published a book called Life Launch, A Roadmap to an Extraordinary Adulthood. As a teenager, she struggled with anxiety, depression, and chronic self-doubt. Now, her journey has transformed her, and now she uses those methods and her own journey to help others to also achieve success and love themselves and just be successful, all well-rounded adults. So today we're in for a treat with Jesse. But before we get the call underway, I would like to do just a little short tune in. So if we could all close our eyes and just check in on ourselves and breathe in deeply and hold it. Now release the breath, embrace yourself, give yourself a big hug and say, I love you. Now breathe in deeply and hold it. And release the breath and say, I accept you. Now breathe in deeply again and hold it. And release the breath and say, I'm doing the best I can. Now, let's open our eyes and be here now. So without further ado, welcome, Jesse.
Thank you so much for having me, Noe. That was such a lovely way to start us off. So just put us in the right grounded headspace. I'm so excited to be here and talk a little bit about self-love. Thank you so much for taking the time for yourself. And I'm hopefully something I share hits someplace good inside you and puts you in a different zone. So today I'm going to talk a little bit about myself. Then I'm going to go to why I think self-love is so important, why it's really, really hard to actually do authentic self-love, and then my solution for that. How do we start to work on that, given that there are blocks to being able to do that? So a little about me. As a teenager, I lost 4 people in my family to suicide. And when that happened, I did not have the coping skills for that, and ended up in a pretty deep depression and anxiety, a lot of self, a lot of negative self-talk. My parents, not knowing what to do, sent me to a number of therapists who didn't know how to help me and were just kind of scared by my grief, to be honest, until finally they found someone that really got me and got them involved and taught me not only how to cope with my emotions, but how to truly love and accept myself. And by learning that, I have then been able to access states of flow more, like, easier then. And then I continue to build those skills for my whole life. Like Noe said, it's a lifelong project that we're going to keep getting better and better at accepting and loving ourselves and getting ourselves into what I call our true self state, which is our best state, our state of flow, like who we all know inside we have the potential to be. And so from doing that therapy, I realized not only do I feel better, but this is my calling in life. So I went straight through grad school, straight through college, straight through grad school, and I started a private practice when I was 24. So I've been doing therapy now for almost 20 years, which is insane. And so this is going to be what I'm going to talk about is the techniques that I've used that not only have helped me, but have helped the hundreds of clients that I've now had the pleasure of working with. So let's start with what what is self-love actually? What am I talking about when I say that? Because people say that all the time, um, but that could mean something different for everyone. For me, that means a place of having empathy, acceptance of all of us, the parts of us, our highest potential, our true self state, and also the parts of us that that are more difficult, like our sadness, our anxiety, our fear, our anger, the part of us that comes out when we yell at our kids and we didn't mean to, when we didn't hit our financial goals, when we feel lazy, when someone else hurts our feelings, when we're stuck in a romantic relationship that doesn't feel fulfilling, but we can't seem to leave it or change the pattern. So true authentic self-love is accepting all states of us at all times. So and and why we care about it is because when we're able to really accept all emotional states and all parts of ourselves, they actually move through us. So the way that emotions get stuck, like the way our sadness or our anger or our anxiety gets stuck, is we're like, I don't like that part of myself. And we start to resist it. And the more we resist it, the more it kind of festers and grows and lives in our body. And we could feel it. And we've now developed all these techniques to kind of try to just like push it through like whether that's affirmations or being like, I'm just not going to yell at, making like declarations that I'm not going to be angry anymore, or I'm going to meet my goals now, or I'm going to be motivated. We try to kind of force ourselves into a place of acceptance. But what we're missing is the place where we actually accept. So then the question becomes, why is that so hard? Like, I'm not saying anything that's brand new. Why is it so hard to actually just accept all of us? We see other people and we don't expect them to not have imperfections, to not have anger, to not be motivated at times. But then when it comes to ourselves, we're like way more, we're way more confrontational. We're way more unkind, unfriendly. The reason for that is because we've actually out-evolved our minds. So our minds come from a time when their job was to survive. And in order to survive, the best emotional state to be in is anxious, hypervigilant, assessing danger. So looking for what could be going wrong next or what's going wrong now. So that's a great place to be if you don't want to get eaten by a tiger, if you don't want to get kicked out of your tribe, if you want to make sure you have enough resources to yourself. That's a great place to be. But if you're like us, who has the luxury of sitting on a call Thursday afternoon to talk about self-love, we're not actually in that place. And so if you want to sit like this group does in a place of love and peace and acceptance, you're actually swimming upstream. So your mind's trying to do one thing, and your emotion and your intention is trying to do something else. So how do we integrate? So then the question becomes, how do we integrate the two? And the first thing is, just knowing that is half the battle, because when you know that, then you are able to start to not be mean to the like, because this is what we do. We go, I'm so mean to myself, I'm so bad at self-love, and then judging ourselves for how we talk to ourselves becomes another way for the survival mind to take over. We get stuck in a momentum loop of negative self-talk, basically. So then we're like, I'm really bad at self-love, which means I'm not succeeding at life, which means I'm worse at self-love. And then we're like that. So how do we get out of this loop and into the loop of, well, I'm really working on this, and I'm trying really hard at this, and it's okay that I'm not good at it. It's actually really hard to be good at it because my mind doesn't know that I'm not in the jungle anymore. So the first step is just knowing that. And then the second step is to actually practice sitting with the states that we've been denying, repressing, resisting for probably years and years in order to survive. And that, what that looks like is, okay, let's say someone didn't text me back and I'm feeling anxious. My survival mind comes in and goes, that's so stupid, you're feeling anxious about that. That doesn't mean anything. This person shouldn't matter to you. Why are you so weak that you care so much? That's what the survival mind says. But I'm going to stop and feel where I feel that in my body. And I'm going to feel like, how old do I feel? Because honestly, when we're triggered, we're not our adult self. We're a younger version of ourselves. I'm going to go, how old do you feel? Okay, I feel like about 10. And then I'm going to go, okay, 10-year-old, what do you need? Well, I just need to know that I'm loved, that it's okay, that that I'm going to be accepted, that I'm going to succeed in life, whatever it is for you. And I'm going to meet that feeling that I'm having with, I'm not going to try to get rid of it. I'm actually going to acknowledge, accept, and then meet it with authentic self-love. And that's what allows it to move through. And so I thought today, if everyone's open, we would do an actual exercise where we are practicing this technique. And then once we do that, then anybody who has questions or gets stuck, I'm here to answer all that. So let's start with, I'm going to give you a second. I can't see most of you, so I don't know if you're have access to a pen and paper or either just typing on your computer. I'm going to ask you to journal a couple things. So I'm going to give you like 30 seconds to gather some writing tools if you don't have them, or open up a blank sheet on your computer. Okay. Hopefully that was long enough. So the first thing we're going to do is I want you to think of a time when you were in your true self state. A time when you just are like, this is who I have the potential to be. Like either you're just like connecting to your romantic partner in a way that feels really authentic, you're kicking ass at work, you're volunteering somewhere and you feel really good about helping other people. Or maybe like me, I love to snowboard. Like I'm on a run that I love and I'm just in the mountains and I'm in the moment and I just feel my physical body working and I feel good. So I just want you to write down one time when you are just in your like optimal, like best state. And then if anybody, I'm going to be quiet for a minute, but if anyone gets stuck and needs help, just raise your hand and I can help you. Scott, do you need help? Or are you just stretching? Oh, you're on mute, so I can't hear you yet.
Mute. There we go. Okay.
There we go.
Yes.
There we go.
There we go. Okay. Now, I have had probably the craziest life anybody could ever imagine. But the point is, my experiences in life, especially being brought up by a first sergeant of a very first MASH unit, became naturally military orientated. After I got shot working undercover for New York State Police, took a lot of surgery recovery. But the point is, what this led is to my career led me to represent the Army Special Intelligence, which means you work inside the country, you know who for, because of a family member retiring, and she became the overnight duty nurse to a very well-loved mafia figure's mother. I'm not going to mention who, but let's put it this way. His first part of his nickname began with crazy. So my experiences naturally were different than most military people, especially starting at a 25-year age. Now, I hate to take up so much of your time, but I'm a very loving person. I mean, I always have that. I just was brought up that way, and you know, that's what life brings you. 7 kids in the family, 4 girls, 3 boys, living in a small Adirondack town. During my few years at Fort Monmouth, I was sent back to another university, actually Monmouth University, for a degree in physical security and safety, and then sent back to Clarkson University with some grant money because the state police were in charge of the Olympics after Munich, and it wasn't acceptable to our government. They needed help.
Scott, I
and-
don't want to
Scott, I don't want
interrupt you. I just want to make sure that I get the activity that I get. You having a hard time coming up with a time that you felt like in your best self state, or is it a deeper question? Because if it's a deeper question, I can address it, but I just want to do the activity first. Oh,
Oh,
you're on.
Scott, we can't hear you. You're muted.
in my life was working with common people, to be honest with you. The interlocking paving stone and the asphalt plank, which nearly led to my death. And the people who protected me was not our government, it was the mafia. So I'm having a hard time, basically.
We lost you there, Scott. Oh, see there? Oh, there he is.
I'm
Scott?
feeling like this
But-
might be
but
a
what I
little
want-
bit of a deeper question. I'm just gonna do the thing, and then I'm gonna come back, and I can answer. If that's okay.
Yeah, I am.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm more
Yeah. Okay. Great. Now I'm echoing in my.
I hear that. Josh, any suggestions here?
Yeah, I muted Scott. I think it was Scott's speaker.
Okay. Okay, perfect.
Okay, great.
There we are.
Okay, I'll come back, Scott. I don't want to lose that or that vulnerability, but I'm worried I'm going to lose the group's focus. Okay, perfect. Okay, so now we have our true self ideal state, and now I want you. Most of us have, not most of us, all of us have 1 to 5 themes that come up over and over, and these are the places where we judge ourselves. So, and some of the most, I'm going to read you some of the most common ones, and they're different. What your themes are different for everybody. So, like, and they're based on your context, your culture, your childhood, how your experiences. And they are, I'm unlovable, I'm not good enough, I'm socially inept, I'm lazy, I'm too sensitive, I'm selfish, I'm stupid, I'm not unique, I'm manipulative. So those are just to get when you're triggered, that's what your mind starts to say. When I say triggered, I mean when you get put in a negative emotional place, what your mind starts saying negative about you normally comes down to like a pretty short sentence. So those are my examples. So right now I want you to think about a time recently when you were triggered into a negative emotional state, and what the negative belief about you was. And we're just going to take one. Like I said, we have 1 to 5, but we're just going to take one for today, just because we're not going to work through all 5 in this short hour-long thing. We're just going to tap into it with one. I'll give you like a couple minutes to write that down. We're writing down the negative belief that we have about ourselves that comes up over and over, and how I'm going to give you access. If you're like, I don't know what the negative belief is that comes up over and over for me, I want you to think about a time recently when you were like triggered into a negative emotional state and what you were saying negative about yourself. Okay, raise your hand if you need more time. Yes. Okay, I'll give you a little more time.
Luciana, did you have a comment?
Um, actually, yeah, I was just gonna apologize for being late, so I'm just sitting back and absorbing the exercise. So I'm going as much as I can,
Appreciate-
through her direction, but no question. I'm
Glad
just
to have you here.
Okay,
yeah,
perfect.
Okay, we'll keep
well,
moving.
I'm sorry.
As long as you have your negative belief and your time when you're in a good
I
place,
got it.
that's all you need. That everything I said is just the background, but that's all you need for this. Okay.
Okay.
Oh, great. All right. So now I want everyone to close their eyes. We're going to just do a 5-minute visualization. And so I just want you to close your eyes, take a deep breath in. I want you to think about the negative belief that you just brought up. I want you to feel where you feel that in your body. When you have that negative belief, what emotions does it evoke for you? Does it have a color? Or a certain energy that you could visualize? And when you think of the version of yourself that has that belief, how old are you? Our negative beliefs are not grounded in our adult true selves. They're grounded in our kid selves. So I want you to see yourself as that kid, whatever age you just gave yourself. And then I want you to ask that kid version, what do they need? Do they need to be told something? Do they need a hug? Do they need you just to sit and be with them? And I want you to just spend like 30 seconds just taking care of that little kid in your head. And when you're ready, slowly open your eyes and come back. Would anybody like to share how that was for them?
I could.
Great. Susan.
Yeah, it's still very powerful. It's hitting me very deeply. It's gonna reverberate for a while because for me it was being hearing you're too sensitive and then wanting to be hugged and accepted with all those emotions that I have. That my emotions are human. It's okay to have emotions. But I can just feel it's gonna take time, but it's hitting. That's all I can say.
I'm so glad you shared, Susan. Thank you for taking the risk and being vulnerable, because that would be the next step to like learning to really love and accept ourselves, is then when we say it out, we allow ourselves to feel, and when we say it out loud and are witnessed by other people, then we're basically saying there's nothing wrong with me, and that helps us have a deeper sense of acceptance, that like gets it in even deeper. And this kind of work, like you said, like that was just our little like entryway, but I do that like billions and billions, thousands and thousands of times, so that it gets easier and easier, and there's more and more, and now my like mind can kind of be overridden, like the survival mind, by like, oh no, everything's okay, and I'm human and I deserve to be accepted and loved. Anybody else want to share?
I'll share if nobody else will share. So 5-year-old me, that I'm not good enough. And so it was like, oh, feeling less than, like not belonging. So what he needed was just simply a hug. So I gave him a hug, gave myself a hug, just sat with myself, my younger version. And that in itself, like emotions, like felt something moving. It felt very nice. And also like there's still something there to let go, right?
Yes. I just opened it, just so you know, it would be really, if you got it and then it all released, like that would be amazing, but probably not realistic for most of us. Like I just opened it up a little bit. So just to get you the experience of the beginning of releasing it. And it takes more time to fully do it. So thank you, Noe. Luciana, were you sharing too?
Yeah, just the validation, feeling not feeling validated, feeling like my like the first person, the lady that like you're too emotional, you're too young to feel this way, you shouldn't talk about this because you don't know anything about it, like validation. And like Noah said, a hug, and just sit quietly.
Yeah.
That was my rescue motion.
That's great. Yeah, a lot of times, and it's kind of like a good lesson for when we're taking care of other people emotionally too. Because I notice a lot of people come to me and are like, I don't know what to do with this person's grief, this horrible thing, or they're in this big emotion. I don't know what to do. And often what we're doing here is exactly what they need. They just need someone to sit with them and witness it and not resist it with them. Or
Yeah.
they just need a hug. Like it doesn't have to be as complicated as we make it, I think. Scott, can I answer your question now?
Okay, so what I got from what you told me, and what I come to realize, that I care about other people's problems, like missing children, more than I care about my own life. I'm a father. Um, and so I have this compassion for people who have their only child missing. I'm safe. I'm injured. I spent all day in the hospital. I've had 6 back surgeries. They knew this. It's just that it's not a need for validation. It's just that I have this thing about, well, the man was an oath keeper, and he kept his oath, and I kept my oath. But too many people in the field of keeping oaths have, for some reason, not kept their oath, and it involves politicians, it involves drug money, and to be honest with you, I was set out to locate these 2 missing people years apart, and I have. And like I said, it nearly cost me my life this weekend. But I want out. I've got grandkids. I want to bring my grandson and my son to Alaska, like I've been for months, and be able to see true wilderness, go salmon and halibut fishing. And it's just like, it's like crashing. I'm not one to cry, but I've had times where I'm all alone and I feel that I have to. My wife is out west in California working on her special projects with the DNA company. And we just got bad news recently about her mother's condition. So I don't know if she's going to be able to make it home before she has to go back to Phoenix from Norco, California. So basically, we've been apart for over 2 months now.
It sounds
And it's
like
because
a lot on your plate. And part of what I'm hearing, I get a feedback when your thing's on, so maybe you mute while I talk. There we go. Part of what I'm hearing is you want permission to take care of yourself now, that it feels like there's this huge pull to take care of everyone else, but now you want that, and that's been hard, that it's easier to give out than to give to you. So what, if anything you get from this call, I want to say, you get permission. You've done your work. You've worked hard. You've dedicated. You've given. You've done an amazing job in this life. And now it's a short life, and you get to do you. You get to do you. And so that's what I'll leave you with. Is there any other question that I could answer? You're on mute. There we go. You're on mute.
It's been the first case. It's been since the early 2000s. She went missing in '85, and it cost friends everything. One person, they bankrupt him. He's in a nursing home.
I hear you. I want to hear all the details, but I worry it's gonna take away from other people getting to share. So yeah, I just want you to know that, like, you're loved and you get permission to do you. Yeah. Good.
Looks like
Steve.
Thank you for this exercise, Jesse. what I realized, the triggering incident was just something that my dad did, and has a habit of doing. And initially, you said, what age is the person that's getting triggered? And initially I thought, well, it's my adult self. And while it still feels like it is, I've done the regression exercises in the past. And so I sort of slowly allowed myself to get back to the child state. I don't know exactly what age it was, but what came up for me was when I interact with my dad and I say something that's important, or when I'm getting triggered, I'll often say something to him to share what's going on for me. And what I realized in this exercise was my dad is 92. So he's of that generation. And someone actually told me a while ago that, as a generalization, not trying to label people overall, but that generation often doesn't know how to express themselves. And so that popped into my head, which is like, when I am triggered, I'm looking for my dad to say, Steve, I hear you. It
Yes.
sounds like it's tough for you right now. And I realized, thank you for this exercise, I realized he just sits silently. Occasionally he'll say something, but most of the time he just kind of sits there and doesn't know what to say. And I'm realizing when he does that, I'm not even getting any validation for what I've shared with him.
Yeah, that is I'm so glad you had that insight, and such a good thing to bring to the group, because I think we all do that because when we're kids, we don't have the capacity to take care of ourselves emotionally. We are dependent on the adults in our lives. We don't have the coping skills yet. We need external validation to survive. And then we grow up and we actually do have the capacity to give ourselves the validation and what we need, just like we did in the exercise today. But we haven't often figured that out. So we keep going to the people that may or may not have the ability to do it. And when they don't do it the way we want it, or the way our child self wants to receive it, then we feel more frustrated, more upset, more victim-y, more vulnerable. And we're just kind of stuck in anger at them, anger at ourselves, anger at them, anger at ourselves. But if we all stop and go, actually, I can go hug the 5-year-old that didn't, and validate the 5-year-old that didn't get validated, and go, they didn't mean, I tend to go, your dad didn't mean to make those mistakes. That's the best your dad knew how to do. Didn't mean it didn't hurt, but now you have the capacity to do something different. So thank you, Steve, for bringing that up. Yeah. Anybody else? Ask a question, share.
This is your opportunity to hear from the expert.
I have a question.
Mm.
How often should one do this type of exercise for it to be beneficial?
Well, good question. It depends on your time, but in the beginning, a lot, because you're building a skill. But so here's the thing. In the beginning, it's more time consuming, because I would say to do it more often, and it's going to take more time to get to feel the feeling release. Over time now, let's say I'm triggered, I can be in a room with a group of people and I might go oh, feel that in my heart, breathe for a second, and then it's moving. But that's because I have years and years of practice. So it's important to do it as frequently as you can without looking like a weirdo in your life and disrupting your life, is what I would say.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. And some people, by the way, like just like when I was younger, I always had to journal it. That's how I did it for the first 5 years. And then like now I can just do it in my head. So everyone's different. Like, everyone can figure out their own techniques for how to do that. And so I'll just go into for a second because it kind of leads into that, and then I'll leave time if anyone else has any questions. But I'm leading this course that Noe's going to be a part of starting September 3rd. It's on Tuesday nights, 4:30 Pacific Standard Time, 4:30 to 6 p.m. for 3 months. And essentially, it's the all-intensive version of this. I'm going to take you in the first month to going really deep into figuring out what all your blocks are to truly loving and accepting yourselves, and then helping you have awareness of where those came from, and then meeting those with love in all sorts of different ways. I'm also going to help you develop different techniques to do what I call state shifting. This was the first one, meeting one, the feeling with love. We do this one a lot. Some others, I don't know if you've heard of tapping, but I really like tapping as a way. Yep. Meditation. Just finding the things that put you in flow and in your true self state. So we'll be talking about that. And so the first month is on our relationship with ourselves. The second month is now taking this new relationship with ourselves and applying it to the practical things in your life, like your relationship with money, or your relationship with the negative coping mechanisms you develop. We all have some, and seeing if you can start to transform some of those things. And then the last month is all about your relationships with other people. And it's 20 people or less it's going to be 15 to 20 people in the group. And there'll be journaling exercises every week. And it also comes with one individual session with me that you get to use anytime throughout the course of the group. So I'm happy now to go answer any questions about that, or back to your experiences in our exercise, or any questions in general about emotional health.
Jesse, could you say when the starting date of that is going to be?
It's September 3rd. And you know what? In the chat, I'm going to put the link to it so that you can.
Perfect.
Can read all about it. And then also, like, you're welcome to, at the bottom of the page describing the group is a form to fill out. And like, I'm happy to jump on the phone with anybody who fills out the form and is like, you can see, I'm not going to be like selling you really hard. I just, if you want to like ask questions or talk it through or see if it's a good fit, like, I'm happy to do that with anybody who fills out that form. Any other questions? Okay.
If not, Jesse, I was wondering if there's just some practical things maybe that we can just take as a takeaway, right? Or
Yes.
getting close to the end of the call. Maybe just a few things that we can maybe make a tiny little change in our daily, routines, way of being that could help us really connect to more self-love, more kindness.
Yes. So the big thing is, after one of these discussions, something that happens a lot is kind of what I was talking about at the beginning of the call, which is where we start to feel we're talking negative to ourselves. And then our survival mind takes that and goes, I'm doing it wrong because I'm not loving and accepting myself. And then we're in a cycle of, Jesse's call didn't even work. I'm so bad at this. I talk negative. So I just want you all to know that after a call like this, sometimes the negative talk seems louder because I've just brought it to your awareness. So what practically I would do after this is, as you hear the negative self-talk, is to start to bring up that true self image that we wrote about first, the person that you're in flow, and have that person take care of that person, which is, I'm saying the same thing that we did, but I'm just going to highlight it. Have the true self, keep writing the times that you also feel in your best self state. Another thing I like to do is, which is part of my course assignment, is that I like to go on dates with myself. So that means I like to schedule time every week that is just about me being with me and taking care of me. And that could be as simple as I'm taking a bath, but I'm thinking about how I love myself in that bath. Or that could be as complicated as I'm going to the movies and I'm taking myself out to dinner, but I'm going to spend alone time with myself every week with the intention to love and accept myself more. Because the more we bring that to the forefront of our mind, the more that grows and the easier it is to access that place inside of ourselves. And then the last thing I'll say is tapping. I really like tapping, and Nick Ortner does like free 5-minute YouTube videos where you can follow his instructions. And if meditating often becomes overwhelming for people, if you're not they're like, oh, my mind gets so loud and it's so hard. And tapping is a way to kind of access that meditative state, but in an easier way, because it gives you something to do while you're doing it.
Thank you. Well, this is an opportunity for whoever has a question. Again, we have Jesse, certified success coach, psychotherapist, TED Talk speaker, author. The list goes on and on and on. She's a great person, and I've met with her on a one-on-one basis, and she's been instrumental in helping me become more aware and really just self-reflection and all the things she's talking about today. So she's great. So this is we have about 7 more minutes to go. I'll zip it and you guys can jump in.
Yes, I do have a book. Okay, let's put the book in the thing. I have a book, and it's called On Life Launch. And okay, well, hold on. I can't do two things at once.
I can put it in there for you.
Okay, great. If you put it in there for me, I can tell you that it's written to young adults. So the stories are like of young 20s and 30s people starting to start their life, but it's my life philosophy. So it's ageless. I think it's helpful. It's a step-by-step guide to basically get you the emotional life that you want to live. And so, I mean, it's my book, but I think it's really, really helpful, especially if you are like, I don't have the money to do a course or therapy, but well, here's a way to guide yourself through the process.
I have a question.
Yes.
What was the process like to do a TEDx talk? And like, I know that you were in South Lake Tahoe. Are you still there?
So I live in Mammoth half the time, and I wanted to do a TEDx talk, so I applied to every event I could find in the United States, and I just happened to get accepted in South Lake Tahoe, which is 3 hours from me, which was amazing. And it was like one of the first in-person events coming out of COVID. Like all the other TEDx events at that time were on Zoom, which wouldn't have been as good for me. And yeah, it was awesome, because it felt like this. At that time, personally, I had lost a baby and I was grieving, and then I turned 40, and on my 40th birthday I got accepted to do this talk, and I had 3 months to prepare, and I put my whole heart and practiced every day, and it was just really, really like healing and fulfilling, and a way to give back and connect to the community after being kind of in an isolated place. So yeah, it was awesome.
Did you have to present on Zoom prior to that, or did they see your work, like your book, or what made them accept you?
It was like my If you have enough of a resume and expertise, this is what I learned. If you have enough of a resume and an expertise, which writing a book, having a practice that I ran for 15 years at the time with all this experience, a graduate degree, all that, if you apply, like they have more events than speakers, so they're looking for people who have that. So I had to do like a video and like a essay about what I would talk about and my resume and stuff like that. So they accepted me based on that. But no, I didn't have to go on Zoom.
That's awesome. That's an awesome place to get accepted at in Tahoe.
Yeah,
What a good place to go. Nice.
Yeah, it was ideal. It was really fun.
I have a question for your book.
Yes.
Does it have something along the lines of to help people take steps whenever they are procrastinating because of like self-doubt or because
Yes.
of those like negative thoughts we worked on today?
Yes, it absolutely does. So what it talks about it kind of intros to where we introed today, which is describing how we're in our survival mind or in our true self. When we're in our true self state, then we're in flow and we're not procrastinating. That's how we know we're there. So if we're procrastinating, it means either we really don't want to do the thing, and so we have to rethink that or reconnect to our motivation. Because a lot of times, if we're not connected to the why, it's hard to get ourselves to move. But say we're connected to the why, but we're just not moving because we're afraid, because it feels too big. The book breaks down how to tackle that, which is like taking little tiny steps at a time. But yes, that's 100% what the book's about.
It seems like every time I want to take a step on something, every time when money comes up, that's where I pause. I feel like that's more of a relationship with money than anything.
Well, there's a reason in the book and in my course, there's an entire class on just your relationship with money, because everyone thinks of money as this like factual thing. I'm rich, I'm poor. I have it, I don't have it. Like, it's in flow, it's not in flow. They think of it like this, but it's much more emotional for every single person. How much you grew up with, what your family's relationship to it was. Its own relationship within itself. And I don't know if you've heard of attachment theory, but I draw a connection from your relationship to money to attachment styles. So you're trying to get to a place where you're secure, where you're like, I'm not burying my head in the sand and just spending and like getting myself in debt, but I'm also not in the place where I'm so frugal that I'm not living my life. You want to get in a place where you're like, I know it's there, I'm confident that I know how to make it, and I'm not anxious about it. But it takes work. And it was one of people, I ran this course in the spring, and it was one of people's favorite classes because they hadn't thought about it that way. They were just like trying to go at it directly like it was this practical thing, and it's not, like you're talking about. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes, Steve.
Thank you for providing those 3 tips earlier when Noe asked about them. Riffing off of that quickly, what I find happens for myself is I'll have a negative thought, which is obviously based on a faulty belief generally. And then I'll get into a loop of that'll generate another negative thought. And then that will sometimes take me into sort of more catastrophizing thoughts. And then I'll just start to spiral down. And like you said, then I'll feel worse about myself and I'll be in a hole. Clearly doing those 3 things that you mentioned, what I focused on is when I noticed that happening is like, okay, you got to change your state. Tony Robbins talks about this.
Yeah.
You got to go for a walk, put on some music, get some fresh air, do something different, change your state. That works sometimes. And other times I'm just overcome with the emotions and I can't get out of it. Do you have any suggestions for what to do when you're really down at the bottom and you can't get out?
Yeah. So I have two things. The first thing is sometimes we're trying to state shift too fast. So we're trying to get out of it because we're scared of how big it is. And sometimes the only way out is through. So sometimes that means like I'm gonna get a punching bag and I'm gonna punch it, I'm gonna cry and I'm gonna scream and I'm gonna let myself like feel it. There's complications with not getting underneath anger, because if you stay in anger, it'll just feed itself. But underneath all anger is the vulnerability. And once you're feeling that, what am I really scared about? What am I really insecure about? What am I really sad about? Once you're there, if you really, really let yourself feel that, it will move. Now, if it feels too big to do that on your own, which sometimes it is, that's when I would get a therapist to like hold your hand through that. Like that's what we're here for, is to basically when you can't. So that's one thing, is like sometimes the only way out is through, and you can't shift before you feel it. And then the second thing is that what helps the judgment release on a deeper level is drawing the connection to where it came from. So if I had a longer class here today, I would be taking that negative belief and I would be having you then go, where did that come from in my childhood? Because our mind goes, it's stupid that why am I so insecure about being too sensitive? Or why am I still like getting triggered by this? It makes it less than, until you go, well, that's because my mom did tell me I was too sensitive, or because I did go through this really traumatic experience. So having a why helps us release the judgment, which releasing the judgment gets us to the pure feeling. And once we're in the pure feeling without judgment, that's when it goes. If it's not going, we're still judging it and resisting it.
We're a little bit past the hour, but I just want to say I appreciate you, Jesse, for coming on our call today and talking about such a timely subject, right? And I know it's a buzzword out there, self-love. And so you've really dispelled like some very practical ways on how we could do that. I know for me, it's been a journey of just more acceptance, more embrace, knowing that, we're all doing the best we can. I think that's the grace here, right? When we can
Yes.
extend that grace to ourselves, we extend it to others. And then instead of being in judgment, like you just talked about, which there's a lot of judgment, and I feel like sometimes we are harder on ourselves than we are with other people. We're really, we're creating our experience. And when we're not accepting ourselves and it's just judgment, then we're feeling less than. How loving is that? It isn't, right? So I so appreciate what you're talking about today, more acceptance, more grace to ourselves, and in turn, we transform the experience that we're having out there, right? In our environment, with the people around us, in our work, our relationships, like you mentioned, even money. It really translates to everything,
Yes.
not there's no exceptions. So thank you so much. Is there anything else that you would like to add, or is there any other last comments anybody would like to express?
Just to say thank you, Jesse. And
Mm.
can you restate that last thing that you said about when you were just answering my question, the last couple sentences about resistance, I think, and
Yeah.
judging, or if you're not.
If a feeling is stuck, it's because we're resisting it in some way. Most times, that resistance is based on judgment. We're judging it as not okay in some way. It shouldn't be this way. The way we get out of the should is often by coming up with the why. Like we give ourselves the reason why we're feeling this way so that we can have empathy.
Amen.
Mm-hmm.
So the why, meaning you said get to the why of what?
why you have the negative belief to begin with. You're not just, there's not something wrong with you. It came from someplace. Came from your dad not being able to meet your emotional needs, i.e., for example. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I just want to say thank you guys all for trusting me, spending this hour with me. And I wish you the best of luck, and reach out if you need anything. My email's on my website, and on the course thing is on the website. So
Can we have her
Yep,
book?
I got all the information.
okay, great. Love
Awesome.
it.
Well,
Thank you so
everyone.
much for coming and talking.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thanks for having me.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Jesse.
Thank
Appreciate you all. Love you all. Hope you guys have a beautiful day, and see you guys next week. We have another exciting guest speaker, really high energy, motivational speaker. So we're in for a treat. Thank you again, and I'll see you guys next time. Ciao.
Absolutely.
Bye.